Hi folks, check it out. I'm shooting in a different direction this time. Is that my board game collection in the back? Oh, whoop. Anyway folks, today I wanted to give my thoughts on some books I read a few months ago and their connection to the Star Wars expanded universe. In loose terms. That would be the Sherlock Holmes books by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. As you see, I read the Complete Adventures and then the Further Adventures because, anyway, these two go together and they're one book. But these are really good. Now, they're great books. I talked about these probably a few years ago on the channel when I talked about the subject of canon. Now, in that video, I spoke about how the first use of the word canon came from Doyle's works when it came to Sherlock Holmes. Because if you recall, Sherlock's adventures lasted way longer than these books, right? TV shows, more stories, and people started wondering, hey, what is canon? Is all Sherlock Holmes stuff fit together, or is just Doyle's books canon? And that was the first debate, the real debate over canon. And so I'm not going to talk about any of that. What I want to talk about is the story behind Sherlock Holmes and how it's kind of relative to the EU movement. You see, when Doyle was writing Sherlock, he loved writing Sherlock. Then he got burned out. He's like, no, I don't want to write anymore. So he stopped doing Sherlock Holmes. He started doing other stuff. The fans went nuts. They wrote, they complained to everyone they knew. Everyone was telling Doyle, I want to see more Sherlock. Well, finally, after years and years and years of the fans begging, he delivered, and boy did he. It was Sherlock Holmes' most recognizable and famous story ever, The Hound of Baskerville. And it was amazing. It's an amazing story to read. And it was super long too, and super good. Now, it took place before the events of the story that he made, which was Sherlock Holmes' death. Yes, he killed Sherlock Holmes off. Well, kind of. He fell over into a waterfall, is what we think, is what Watson thinks. Because the evidence shows there was a struggle and they both tipped over the waterfall and they were never found again. So, thus is the end of Sherlock Holmes. Okay, well, obviously it wasn't, right? Now, Doyle didn't do that to create himself an out. He was just doing that to say, it's over, folks. No more Sherlock. But the fans wouldn't hear it. So, after years of being away from the story, he comes out with this big one. Everyone goes nuts. They want to hear more. And so Doyle does just that. And he creates the Further Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. And these stories, folks, are even better than the original ones, in my opinion. And even up to the final story that he tells, which is his last bow. And basically, it's Sherlock Holmes bowing out and, saying adieu to everyone, in a way. It's flash forward way into the future. He and Watson have grown old now. They do where are they now? What have they been doing in the past so many years, decades? Watson enjoyed a full life as a married man. Sherlock Holmes tended to a garden. He's been super happy. He retired years ago. But they got together for one last romp. And it was Doyle's way of saying, this is the end. And the fans were okay with that. And they were saying, yes, his last bow, very good, bravo. Now, what was the difference there? That he ended Sherlock Holmes abruptly in the height of his career? Or that he let him, in essence, just like a Western movie, go softly, quietly, riding off into the sunset and giving him a happy ending? And it got me thinking, what would I want from the expanded universe if they brought it back? Would I want them to just keep going and going and going? Or would I like it to be completed? And as I think about this, I think I just want it to be completed. Now, what do I mean by be completed, right? Because there's a billion stories to tell in this universe. Well, if they were to finish the storyline between Crucible and Legacy, I think I'd be happy with that. Now, of course, there's other stories. You're like, wait, Matt, there's other things they need to finish. Force Unleashed 3, Dawn of the Jedi, Republic Commando, hello, and there may be a few others too, and they could, fill those in as well. But what would you do if they gave you a completed story? Of course, there'll be some openings and gaps, like there always will be, from the old Dawn of the Jedi to the Legacy era. But what if they completed all the necessary gaps in between the story, would you be happy? That's the question I want you to ask yourself, because I'm thinking I would. If I got to see what happened after Crucible and how the legacy led up to the comic book era, I think I'd be pretty good. I'd be pretty happy because I'd have one complete story. Now you're saying, whoa, Matt, what about all those other ones you mentioned? Yeah, they could fill those in too and I'd be happy as well. But after that, if they said, okay, we're done, and they gave us a good ending, I think I'd be fine. It's an interesting topic to think about, and I hope you give yourself the time to do so. Now, I'm not saying that I want them to just bring it back and then shut it right down after it's all done, but at that point, I think that would be good enough. What about you? What do you think? Let me know in the comments, and I will talk to you again soon.